Today, I'll be going over 3 common mistakes that brass players make. Stay tuned. What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron, helping musicians get better, faster through performances, educational videos, and product reviews. And again, today I'm going over 3 mistakes that brass musicians make. Now, before we get too far into things, I do want to remind you to hit that subscription button and ring the notification bell to make sure you get these videos directly to you right when I upload. But anyway, 3 mistakes that I see a lot of musicians make. This is kind of a title. These are just 3 things that I see that happen commonly in a lot of my students. So I teach at a university and I teach a lot of middle and high school students. So I work with a wide range of people, and these mistakes I kind of see they go across no matter what their age is or how long they've been playing. I see a lot of this going on, and I thought I would just kind of highlight them and give a couple of my solutions or things that you can do to help you maybe fix these problems if this is happening to you or your students. Thing number 1 is very short and shallow inhales. Instead of breathing in for an entire beat, a lot of times we'll breathe in on, let's say 4 if we're going to come in on 1. We'll breathe in for an entire beat, but we won't necessarily breathe in that whole beat. We'll breathe in for about half the beat and then hold it and then exhale, or we'll wait until the end. You will hear 1, 2, 3, 4, breathe. And what this leads to is, like I said, your body's going to be strained, and also your sound is not going to be consistent. This is also going to lead to you needing to inhale more often, and tends to continue the cycle of not a good inhale, so I have to breathe more often, so I don't take a good inhale in, so I have to breathe more often. And if we can just tank up easily and efficiently the first time and every time after that, it tends to stretch out our playing, make us sound better, and also free us from any tension within our playing. So a couple things that I would suggest to fix this. The first thing is taking in and making sure you take in deep, elongated breaths for entire beats. I would even suggest, 1's great, but 2 if you have the opportunity. So instead of getting this 1, 2, 3, instead of that, we're getting this 1, 2. Not only is it much more relaxed, but it also will lead to better playing, better sounds, longer playing, louder playing, all the things we want as brass players. So the second thing I see pretty frequently is the airstream is actually not constant. Now, I didn't mean for 2 of the 3 to be air related, but here we are. We're brass players. Air's important. Sorry. But yeah, anyway, a lot of times what I'll see is the airstream's not consistent when we're changing notes. When you play a whole note, it's just going to be one big old column of air, right? But a lot of times we might divide up the notes if we are changing notes between those things. Even in slurs, sometimes I'll hear those puffs or those gaps in music. A lot of times I'll call it like the 6th grade trombone technique, where they don't quite have the motor skill yet to move their arm and continue to blow at the same time. So you hear this chopping of every single note. Or maybe we're not super strong in our embouchure and our chops, so when we go to do a lip slur to help make the new note happen, we'll kind of puff it out a little bit extra. But really, when you're changing notes, no matter if you're playing a big old 16th note run or you have these big old jumps or anything like that, we just want to maintain a consistent column of air. I like to think about it like a water faucet. You turn on that water and our tonguing or our changing of notes is not turning that water on and off. That water's just on, and all we're going to do is manipulate it with our hand. That would be the articulation, or just leave it running. Everything otherwise with the air column feels the same. If this is a problem with you or your students, some of the things that I would suggest to help fix this, obviously air patterns are going to be great, just just blowing out into the world, whatever it is you're working on, and getting that airstream to be really consistent. If you need a visual aid, sometimes a breathing bag would help, which I'll have a link for in the description, or even a tissue, or just putting your hand in front of your face and feeling constant air. Whatever you need to do to kind of feel out that you're making sure that the airstream is staying constant, that's always a good thing. Another thing you can do if you don't feel like your tongue and your valves or whatever are lining up is you can ghost. Ghosting is what I call the technique where you're blowing into the instrument, you're playing whatever pattern you're playing, you're moving your valves or your slide or whatever, and you're blowing into the horn, but you're not creating like a buzz sound, but you're able to hear the air going through. Every once in a while, the instrument might burp or fart or whatever you want to call it. Get over it. It's just something that happens from time to time. No big deal. Ha ha ha, move on. Can you tell I work with a lot of middle schoolers? And then the other thing too, especially with the lip slurs, is making sure that when you blow and you're doing lip slurs, that the air feels just the same way as it does when you're playing a whole note. So let's say you're playing a big old concert B flat whole note, just going. And then when you go to lip slur and half notes to that F, the air feels the same, and the only thing you're doing is you're manipulating your embouchure to create the new note. And the final thing I noticed, thing number 3, a lot of teachers probably saw this coming, but pressing the mouthpiece into your face and playing with a ton of tension, especially as we go higher and higher and higher and higher. Those of you who get the red ring of death when you play for 20 minutes, I'm talking to you. Now, in terms of embouchure placement and how much pressure you're supposed to apply and all of that, there's a bunch of schools. I'm not getting into it. I'm not going to go that far. All I'm going to say is I believe that you put enough pressure onto your face to create a nice seal, which isn't much at all. And after that, there should be no added pressure. What creates the new note is your embouchure. So I'm crushing the vibration source doing that. But if I allow it to come from here, now, for my younger players, those of you who haven't been on the horn for that long, just remember that your embouchure isn't just your lips. It's this whole mask here. And so when you're changing notes, you should see movement here, right? But you shouldn't see movement coming into your face. If you're, knocking out your teeth to try to play a high B flat, you're not doing it right, essentially. And you want to work on the embouchure strength to get you to that high B flat. And what it does, other than just put this weird mark on your face, is it also leads to inconsistency of tone throughout different ranges, as well as an inconsistency of how and when and in what scenarios can you play what specific notes. Like if you learned how to play a super high B flat by going up it in a scale, and then you play a piece of music and it jumps from like a G to that B flat or something like that, I don't know. You might not have the same ability as you do when you're playing it on the scale, and that can get frustrating. I can play it in this situation, but I can't play it in that situation. Well, if you're doing it with pressure, you're probably in a different scenario depending on how you're playing or what piece you're playing than you are if you're not playing with pressure. So to fix this, here are the steps that I would take. Step number one is really making sure that you are playing as relaxed as humanly possible, and that you're trying not to add pressure in your torso, your head, your upper body, and we're not trying to strain at all. Now, some of you might be doing this and you have no idea, you're not aware of it whatsoever. That's typical, that's normal. What I would suggest is practicing with a mirror, or maybe your phone in selfie mode, so you can actually like see yourself and you can peek over at yourself while you're playing, and you're like, oh, I didn't know my elbows touched my ears when I was in the middle of playing. I shouldn't do that. Let's not do that anymore. And you become conscious of it, and it becomes a habit that you get to break. Or you watch yourself, play a scale, and all of a sudden the horn's getting further and further and further into your skull as you go higher and higher and higher. That's something you can see and you can change. In my opinion, the notes are going to come out through embouchure strength. And so if you're not working on that on a regular basis, that's just not going to happen for you. What I would suggest is be really patient with your embouchure and allow things to develop, and don't necessarily just try to create things if you're not ready for it, because you could possibly hurt yourself also. And so if you want to develop your embouchure, doing it through lip slurs especially, doing slow lip slurs, rapid lip slurs, ones that go really wide, ones that are really narrow, ones that go up, ones that go down. Just doing lip slurs in general are going to really help develop the muscles that help create the higher notes and the lower notes and all the notes you would want, but not putting a ton of strain on those muscles by adding pressure. Remember, it's a piece of metal. Hopefully you have teeth back there. So you have something really hard, another thing really hard, and then you have flesh. And if you're cutting those two things together, it's gonna lead to bad things. And don't even get me started on those of you who have braces on. Ugh. But yeah, so those are 3 things that I run into constantly, 3 just common mistakes that I see, a couple ways to go about fixing it, and that leads me to my question of the day. What mistake did you make, and how did you go about fixing it? I am aware that there are a ton more bad habits that I didn't touch on today, but some of you might be suffering through those things. So I want to know in the comments down below, what are some things that you had to get over, and what's the technique that you went through to get over that bad habit? But yeah, guys, that's all I've got for you today. Again, my name's Aaron. Please, if you like this video, hit that like button, and remember to hit that subscribe button. And until next time, be happy, but never satisfied.